A chipped mug flew across the kitchen, shattering against the wall in a rain of ceramic shards. Steam rose from the kettle, forgotten on the counter, as Sarah stared wide-eyed at what she'd just done. Her hands trembled. She glanced at the clock, its ticking echoing in the silent room. Damn. What had she become? Just 2 weeks ago, that mug sat on the breakfast table, filled with coffee as she smiled at her reflection in the window. But now, it felt like the final crack in a fragile routine she hadn't realized was broken. What she found buried in that chaos would unravel years of tightly wound habits, setting her on a path she never expected. Let's go back to when it all began. Not with broken porcelain, but with an even more broken promise. It was a rainy Wednesday morning. Sarah was rushing, as usual, tugging her jacket tighter around her shoulders while dodging puddles on the sidewalk. Her mind was already at the office, juggling deadlines and emails that piled up faster than she could manage. This was her life, hurried, packed, and relentless. Sarah's routine was clockwork, but mechanical. Each day blended into the next, driven by a to-do list that never seemed to shrink. Friends had started calling her a ghost, and it wasn't entirely a joke. She was present, sure, but absent in many ways that counted. Her apartment remained tidy, the bills paid on time, work submitted without a hitch. Yet something crucial was missing. The day it all shifted was no different at first. She woke, washed, dressed, and hurried out with a slice of toast still in hand. The city street buzzed as always. A young boy on a scooter weaving through the crowd almost clipped her shoulder, his laughter trailing behind. Was it the look on his face, carefree and light, that felt like a whisper against the noise of her thoughts? The elevator at work creaked open, and Sarah stepped in, adjusting her bag when an unexpected voice broke the silent bubble she wrapped around herself daily. "Hey, Sarah," said Mark from marketing, his hand resting on the open button for a moment too long. He looked at her in a way that wasn't about work. "Morning, Mark," she replied, feigning a smile, but already turning inward to check her mental schedule. But Mark didn't stop at pleasantries. "You know," he started, hesitation in his voice, "we have to stop meeting like this, only between floors." There it was, an invitation wrapped in humor. Sarah raised an eyebrow, more surprised than anything. "Maybe we should," she quipped, not realizing that the conversation would linger longer than expected in the back of her mind, like a melody that wouldn't fade. What followed was a predictable routine at her desk: meetings, calls, snippets of conversations that blurred into the same daily grind. But that single remark from Mark nudged at her. By late afternoon, her focus waned, and she caught herself staring at her reflection on the computer screen, at eyes that seemed to search for something beyond the words and spreadsheets. That evening at home, surrounded by the quiet hum of evening traffic outside her window, Sarah absent-mindedly swept the counter, pausing as her fingers grazed the chipped mug resting there. It belonged to a set she bought years ago, long before she entangled herself in the cycle she now lived in. Something stirred in her, like a question floating just beneath the surface, but it was too vague to catch. She turned away, flicking on the TV to distract herself with someone else's story for a change. Yet, even then, Mark's words, "We have to stop meeting like this," echoed with another meaning. Was it time to change something? This subtle inquiry tiptoed into her thoughts over the following weeks, almost unnoticeably, as she went about each highly efficient day. Then, it was a Saturday morning, quiet and unassuming, when she finally paused for a moment longer, with her mug in hand and a decision forming somewhere deep within. Little did she know, the simplest gesture of letting go of that mug would soon become the catalyst for undoing habits she didn't know she was prisoner to. As Sarah stood there with the chipped mug in her hand, something clicked. It wasn't just about the mug. It was about the life she'd built around fragile routines that no longer served her. She realized she had been holding on to pieces of herself that didn't fit anymore. The next morning, Sarah hesitated before reaching for the mug again. Instead, she opened the cupboard and picked a different one she barely noticed before. This small change felt foreign and a little uncomfortable, but also liberating. Her morning unfolded with tiny shifts. She took a different route to work, noticing things she hadn't before. A street musician playing softly, a new cafe bustling with life. These observations, small as they were, began to fill Sarah with a sense of discovery she hadn't felt in years. At the office, she found herself more present, exchanging genuine smiles and really listening when Mark stopped by her desk to chat. She realized that the walls she had built, intended to keep her focused, had also kept everyone out, including herself. The following weeks were like peeling layers off an onion. Each little decision, each embrace of the unfamiliar, chipped away at the habits that had sealed her in. It wasn't about a dramatic change, but breaking free from the weight of her own expectations. One day, Sarah finally decided to join Mark for lunch. They sat by the window of a cozy cafe where the conversation flowed effortlessly. For the first time, she wasn't counting minutes or mentally scheduling the rest of her day. She was just there, in the moment, laughing, sharing stories, discovering parts of her that had become strangers. And in Mark's company, Sarah saw reflections of what she had overlooked, a simple joy and connection in shared moments. She realized how the small gestures, the ones she'd often dismissed, were the foundations of something meaningful. At home, the neglected mug sat on the counter, still chipped, but now a reminder of a threshold crossed. Sarah didn't have to throw it away. She simply placed it amongst the others, acknowledging its place in her story without letting it define her. Gradually, Sarah found a balance. She still met deadlines and paid bills, but she also made time for walks, unplanned visits with friends, even moments of quiet reflection where she simply allowed herself to breathe. These subtle shifts transformed Sarah's days. Her apartment felt less like a pristine showroom and more like a home. Her relationships deepened, no longer clouded by the frenzy of a too-busy life. Most importantly, she tapped into the part of herself that was both present and alive. Looking back, it amazed Sarah how one small gesture, choosing a different mug, started a ripple effect that broke old habits and opened her life to new possibilities. Each choice that had seemed inconsequential at the time now felt momentous. As she sat by the window one evening, cradling a cup of tea in that new favorite mug, she smiled. Life was still complex and messy, but she had learned to find beauty and meaning even in the chaos. It was about pursuing what mattered, letting go of what didn't, and the courage to change, even when it began with something as simple as a chipped mug. This time, when she caught her reflection in the glass, she saw someone she recognized, a woman not defined by her mistakes, but by the lessons they taught. For anyone else feeling trapped by their own habits, Sarah's journey might serve as a gentle reminder that change doesn't require grand gestures. Sometimes it starts with a simple choice, a tiny shift that unfolds into a whole new understanding. And as Sarah leaned back, she felt a quiet contentment, knowing she was not just moving with life's currents, but shaping them with each mindful, thoughtful choice.